IB Nation Sports Talk up and rolling on a Monday. Hope you're having a great day. He's Vince D'Addario. I'm Sean Steyers. Vince is doing double duty tonight. He's got upon further review with Brian after this show ends, whenever that is. I'm curious, Vince, by any chance, do you have gnats in your house right now?
Not to my knowledge. I don't think so.
My wife thinks it's due to all this humidity that's been in the air the past few days. We have like an abnormal amount of gnats. And before people say you got food out, all that we don't have anything out that's not usually out right now. It's cooled down.
Ugh.
They're called kids USMA 87s.
Well,
yeah,
there's some truth
big
to
gnat
that.
sitting in the other room.
Yeah, there's some minor truth to that.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, gnats are
so anyway, I've set these. I Googled and I found like you can mix vinegar and sugar and soap and like mix it up, put it in a bowl. And so I'm trying to catch and kill gnats right now. That's a lot of fun. But one just buzzed right in front of me as the show was starting. That's why I asked.
Of course it did.
I thought this was a gnat-free zone, but I guess it's not.
No such thing.
Shout out as we get started to Adam, an IB listener / watcher. I was on my way through the concourse to the post-game press conference Saturday night, and Adam stopped by and said hello. He had a really cool hat on.
Okay.
But shout out to him. Notre Dame with a win, 31-24 over Louisville. They're 4-1 going into the bye week. And I don't know about you, Vince, but I felt like great Notre Dame Stadium environment Saturday afternoon.
Okay.
The crowd was engaged. They were fired up. It was one of the best environments I think I can remember for an afternoon game at Notre Dame Stadium. By the way, before I let you respond, remember when I mentioned retiring Rockies outfielder Charlie Blackmon's walk-up song last week?
Yes.
Your Love by
do.
the outfield. I don't know if you were up in the press box with us yet. I might have been sitting there by myself, but they played on the video board, like during the pregame warmups. It was like a dance mix version of Your Love by the outfield. So I was like,
really?
I kind of started bouncing in my chair and like, all right, I'm like, okay, this is going to be a good day. This is going to be a good day. Like,
oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah. Louisville head coach Jeff Brom even said after the game that the loud environment inside the stadium did have an impact on him. So,
well, I'll tell you what.
What did you think? What did you think?
As I was walking in, I saw way more red than I thought I was going to see, to be perfectly honest with you. Just walking through the tailgate parking lot and all that from where we have to park, and walking up to the stadium, and I stopped at a few tailgates and talked to some people, and there was a lot more red than I was anticipating. There's no doubt about it. But then once you got into the stadium,
not much inside the stadium.
Less. Yeah, it was actually less than I thought it was going to be.
I don't know what the story is behind the Louisville band not coming. I would have thought, since Louisville doesn't come here very often, their band would have come, but there was no band. And they were mostly what they did. They kind of did what they did, they're like the exact same game plan with Ohio State last year. Instead of clustering them in one spot.
Yeah, they were like
they spread them out like up at the top of the stadium.
It was like a ribbon,
like under the video board and over to the other side, and then just smatterings. I'd say we were trying to guess and count down. I'd say maybe 10% at best, maybe even 5% of the crowd
at best. Yeah, because we had said maybe 20, maybe in that 15, 20%, I think, and it was like 10. Like they were participants in what was going on at the stadium. You know what I mean? And they had every right to cheer early, with the muff kickoff or the fumble on the kickoff and all that, up 7-0. But pretty much from that point on, I mean, they're playing catch up. So, didn't hear a whole lot from them, to be perfectly honest with you. I even went out to the stands during halftime to see some of my relatives, and it was a pretty good crowd out there. I was actually pretty impressed with how many people were out there and still out there, because it was raining as well. It was just kind of on and off rain. It was just kind of a day. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And I do wonder,
a lot of people there.
Like, I wonder how much of that, since both teams fumbled a couple times, I wonder how much, because it was
I'm
raining
sure it had to do with it a little
right
bit.
before
Yeah,
kickoff. It might have even been come down a little bit still at kickoff, and
it
obviously
was.
it's
Yeah.
on the field to whatever extent. I wonder how much that played into the amount of fumbles that we saw. Let me just ask you this. It was an inauspicious beginning, of course, for Notre Dame, but things ultimately went pretty well. They won. What's your top takeaway from Saturday?
I mean, the top takeaway, I guess, would be, something along the lines of, okay, we know that this team can come out and play a complete game. Now, it wasn't a complete game in that, they scored on every drive or anything like that. But what I mean by a complete game is, in this particular game, the offense kind of picked up the defense, whereas in other games, it's kind of been the other way around, right? And so that was good to see, because the defense didn't play great early, right? And I'm not saying this because they gave up 7 points, and all that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, they
They
gave
had
up
to
the
find
7.
their way. They gave up over 100
Yeah,
yards rushing in the first half. Yeah, they
right.
had to find their way a little bit.
Yep, and the offense picked them up by scoring 3 drives in a row, right?
Yeah.
Now, one of those
You
drives was a
don't
one-play
help the
drive.
defense get settled at all when you fumble the opening kickoff and you let
Right.
Louisville 3 plays into the end zone. Defense didn't have a chance before the game even gets going. It's like, oh, they've already got the ball now. Big momentum play right there.
I'm actually no, I completely agree with all that. I was just kind of looking at the chat, and there's already a Jason Garrett hater in there. I rewatched the game 2 different ways. I watched the the all 22 in preparation for tonight's show, but I also went back and I watched the Peacock
game
version.
broadcast. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you watch it in Peacock?
Yes, I did.
Tell me about your remote experience. Like, what kind of remote do you have? Do you have a remote that's easy to control? Can you forward easily? Can you stop easily?
So
tell me what I'm doing wrong.
I have a Roku remote. Okay. It's a Roku remote. And it's got the left, right, up and down toggle thing. You toggle a couple times to the right. Each toggle is 10 seconds, and so that was fine for me.
Interesting.
If I have to go 3 minutes,
my POS remote, like mine came with the TV, and because it's got like the Netflix on the it's got like a Netflix button, it's got an Amazon button, and some other stuff, but it's got one of those circular toggles. But it doesn't, there's nothing, I get no action, when I do the clicks like I do with my regular remote. Yeah. You get no juice, Vince. You get no juice. Oh, Vince is going to go get his remote. Maybe I should have, like gone all out and brought my remote in and we could control them.
Here it is.
USMA is there with me. I mean, we're around the same age. So, we can't be, okay. Hold it like right up. So is the purple thing, is that your forward and back toggles?
Yes. Yep. So left, right, you get one toggle left, one toggle right. It's 10 seconds each direction. Easy peasy. And of course, it's got the 4, Netflix, Disney Plus, Apple TV, and whatever that other one is, HBO Max. You could just go straight to it. But it's small. It's in the palm of your hand. It's easy.
Looks better than my remotes, Vince. I'm going to have to say. Might have to do some digging. I mean, see if I can figure this out. Because it's like, we have the Direct TV, so we've got the Direct TV remote. So anything I've said before, I record on my DVR on my regular TV. So it's like boom, boom. It's got 4 speed. You can go 2, 3, 4, and it's zips through stuff.
Right.
But
yeah, it is a Roku remote, everybody, for those who are asking. My TV in the basement is a Roku TV, right? And then upstairs, I have a Roku box that plugs into my TV.
Like this is fairly unnecessary, Rabbit Nile.
Wow, it's coming at you, man.
Do I have a cord connecting to the TV? I mean, if I did, it would probably work easier. I don't know if he's actually being sarcastic or serious there.
I want to give my analysis of Jason Garrett.
Okay, go ahead.
because
Yeah, because you were saying you rewatched the
yeah,
broadcast. Go ahead.
I do feel like, and this is not going to be a popular opinion, I do feel like he gets a bad rap. I'm not going to lie. I think he tries very hard to be as neutral as possible. He's not a Notre Dame fanboy by any stretch of the
No,
imagination.
I mean he went to Princeton. He played
And-
in he made his fame in the NFL. So,
But as an analyst, it's an NBC broadcast. I don't want him to be a Notre Dame fanboy. I don't care.
well,
that
no,
all the
and
Notre
that's
Dame
obviously
games
what
are- I
NBC
don't-
wants too. Yeah.
Right. I don't want that personally, right? He was, in my opinion, and as I'm watching it, he was judgmental towards both teams. He was complimentary towards both teams. I really didn't have an issue with him, to be perfectly honest with you. And Burmeister is the one who kept bringing up the birthday of Shuck, not Jason Garrett. So I counted
he
that
had
in
his
3
nugget
times.
and he rode with it.
Yeah.
On his birthday he fumbles. I'm
Yeah,
assuming, something.
I think
like
I heard
that.
it like 3 times. Like it wasn't that big of a deal. And the fact that he's 25 years old in his 7th year of college football, that's a legit nugget to bring up. I'm sorry. So I don't know. I don't.
Were people
really
mad about that? Were people mad that they were bringing up Shuck's birthday?
Yes, they were mad about it.
You got to remember,
Said it too many times.
NBC, even if it's on Peacock, NBC considers this a national broadcast. It's not
Correct.
necessarily a Notre Dame broadcast.
And that's the thing. I think
know.
Notre Dame fans want it to be a pro Notre Dame broadcast, and I get that, but that's not
this
what
is
they're
why I've
providing you.
Yeah, Apple TV. You might remember back at the beginning of the baseball season, we talked about this when
You do
Apple
both. Yeah.
puts the baseball games on, the Major League Baseball games, what Apple does with your remote, and it's very easy to access and
Yeah.
do. You've got the network TV broadcast, but then they also, for the 2 teams that are playing, they give you the option to switch over to either of the teams' radio play-by-play.
I think that's
doing the
cool.
game as well. And it's like, I don't know why Peacock doesn't do something like that. And even if you don't have the other team, like, again, it's a Notre Dame contract. They're paying Notre Dame for the right to these broadcasts. So even if it's not going to be give Notre Dame, because you still see all the TV ads, like the regular TV ads. And it's like the radio audio comes in and out around the commercial breaks and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I think it's the perfect option because basically every game is on Peacock. Only one is not on NBC. So if you're offering 2 different options, one on streaming and one on network TV, why not add something extra that's different to the streaming option to give people some incentive to go over there if they want? It'd be a perfect option to just say,
yes,
hey, here's Tony Simeone and Ryan Harris doing the Notre Dame radio play-by-play call.
And
What's
if you want to hear a homer call, listen to Ryan Harris. That's a homer call. Like he's a homer.
A lot of people want that.
And that's fine. He went to Notre Dame. He's a pro Notre Dame guy. I get it. But if that's what you're looking for, then you need to listen to the radio because the TV guys are going to try to play it down the middle as much as they can. And I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. I'm sorry. I didn't have an issue with Jason Garrett. I really did.
Okay.
So anyway.
Well, I'll go ahead and give it because, you're the one doing 2 shows tonight. So you want
and I'm making the show longer here. So
you want to sidetrack and sidebar, you can do it. But we're covering the stuff that we came here to cover, Dario.
Yeah,
so
we are.
Don't forget about that. All right. So my top takeaway from this game the other night is, Notre Dame showed an unflappable and I think unflinching level of toughness and resilience in this game that we haven't always seen from them before. Like Lou Holtz used to talk about don't flinch. And no matter what happened Saturday, starting with the fumble on the opening kickoff, another fumble that gave Louisville, basically 2 easy touchdowns out of those 2 fumbles, Riley Leonard getting hit, kept getting back up and going again, and all the other attrition due to the injuries that we're going to run down because the list of injuries
it's long,
stunningly long. I can't even believe how long it's getting right now. But so, you can talk about, did Louisville have more yards? Yeah, they did. You can talk about, did Louisville receivers make crazy one-handed plays and, have better stats and, hat tips to Ja'Cory Brooks and Colin Lacey. By the way, I'm not going to hat tip to Chris Bell, but hat tip to those other 2 guys. But, Christian Gray was out the entire game. Benjamin Morrison was out for a good chunk of the game. And, the secondary is basically being pieced together with duct tape out there. And you've got Leonard Moore playing his butt off, hanging in there with these crucial snaps. Jordan Clark and Rod Hurd playing their butts off as well at corner where they're not used to playing, because again, Gray and Morrison are both out. And then you throw in the fact, you knew Botello was already out. Now Bubakar Traore is out. And you got Logan Thomas, a true freshman, in there, giving him some pretty good, snaps, all things considered. 9 pass breakups by the Irish secondary, 8 quarterback pressures by the defense. And then it was late in the game, but still Sam Pendleton goes out. And you've got Sullivan Absher in there playing guard, and I saw someone posted at halftime that if you looked at the stats at halftime, you'd think that Louisville was winning.
That's
and,
fair.
maybe that's the case afterwards as well. The way the game played out, you might have thought that too. But Vince, I've got something for you. Okay.
Ooh, I like stuff.
They run through this whole spiel. I found something online. Found it last weekend, actually. I ordered it and it is here. Okay.
That's why you're all buttoned up. Okay. Now it makes sense.
That's why I've got this right here, baby. Stats are for losers. That's right.
What is that, like a guy in a Bronco?
So apparently this was a thing with Josh Allen. And I don't know if it was like coming out of Wyoming when he didn't have a great completion percentage or what. But this is apparently that's why there was a t-shirt. And they made these at some point. You don't hear them talk about it, but stats are for losers. And I think I'm going to just, I'm just going to ride with this. This is going to be my brand from now on.
Love it.
So
I love it.
I found it. I ordered it. I'm wearing it. Yeah. And it's a little bit cooler now that I took the sweatshirt off as well. But, you obviously you can't take out the fumbles, but if you take out the 2 short yardage situations where you give Louisville a touchdown, then you take out the other short yardage situation where Notre Dame gets a touchdown. Remember, both teams benefited from short field, but Louisville benefited twice. I mean, it's like it's like a 24-17 Notre Dame win. Maybe there's a field goal here or there. 27-13. That's more the range if you don't, because both teams coughed it up. Notre Dame coughed it up twice for Louisville, but they were tough, they were resilient, and they found a way to win. So to me, that's the biggest thing that I took out of that. Because, look, again, when Devin Ford fumbles that opening kickoff and they go right in and score a touchdown, it's like, you talk about a bad omen. It's like, this could be a really long day. And it's like, are we going to see a repeat of what we saw last year, the way things went off the rails because of all these turnovers down at Louisville? Yeah. But, again, both teams gave up some points off turnovers. And at the end of the day, I just, maybe Notre Dame's offense wasn't as consistent as you would want it to be over the long haul of the game, but they obviously made some timely plays in the second half. And like you said, you got to play complementary football. And Notre Dame's offense, the defense had a day, again, in large part because of those easy short fields that you're giving them. But the defense had a day between the injuries and between the turnovers where it needed the offense to bail it out a little bit. And they did. And I think that, even though it was not a perfect game, didn't look perfect from start to finish, it was still, to me, an exciting game to watch. I don't know how excited you were. You look like you were like, I asked you once, and you're like, I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to say when I get on this post-game show.
Oh, I was stressed, Sean. I was that was because they had that 10-point lead, what seemed like forever, right? And that 10-point lead was the most tenuous 10-point lead I feel like I've ever been associated with as a fan / analyst. You know what I mean? And then, just the whole thing, right? And so then Riley Leonard goes down, and of course, it just got the wind knocked out of him. But in the moment, it didn't look good when he's laying there on the ground, and I'm seeing Steve Angeli start warming up, and I'm like, oh, where's this post-game show going to go? You know what I mean? Like, that is what my process was. And I know I had my head in my hands at one point, and I'm like trying to figure this out. It was stressful, man. It was way more stressful than it needed to be because looking
I know you
back
love
on
your
it,
in-laws, but you looked like a man who was like, oh man, my freaking in-laws are in town for the weekend. And it's like, what? I got to go home to this tonight.
Oh, dude, I was so stressed. And then, but watching it again and looking back on it, it was like, oh, well, you know what? Notre Dame was pretty much in control the whole game, and it was some narrow control at times, but they were in control the whole game. I should have been less stressed, but I was very stressed out. So
What'd I tell you before you left? Notre Dame this is when they had 24
yeah.
points. They get one more touchdown, they're going to seal this sucker up. And we agreed on that. Now, it got a little tenuous, obviously, at the end, but
as I'm walking to the car, I hear the roar of the crowd, and I'm listening to the radio broadcast on Odyssey, right? So it's a little delayed. I hear the roar of the crowd. I'm like, what happened? What happened? And like, oh, it's a fumble. He returns it for a touchdown. And like, everybody's going crazy. And then I get in my car and then turn on the radio broadcast, and the delay is now gone. And all of a sudden there's no touchdown. And like, wait, what? What happened? Like, yeah. So,
what's going on here?
Yeah, it was not great for me. It's not great.
By the way, Louisville's clock management on that last
awful,
horrible. I went through this. I went through this because it's been something that I'd been thinking about, and I went back and looked at the play-by-play. So, I mean, they were just so casual. They get the ball back at their own 45 with 2:44 to play in the game, and they're down by a touchdown. They ran 2 plays in 44 seconds. 2 plays in 44 seconds. They're standing there in a huddle. That gets them to the Irish 47. They ran just 2 more plays after the 2-minute timeout, because the 44 plays got you to the 2-minute timeout, obviously. They lose 2 yards, and then it's game over with 53 seconds left. So they almost 2 full minutes. They only ran 4 plays and netted, 8 or 12 yards or something like that. But it just went nowhere. Just horrendous clock management by Jeff Brom, a guy who we sat here last week and talked about what a great job he did coaching in this game last year. And he's been a coach for a long time. But great response by Marcus Freeman's team and Al Golden's defense in the end when they had to.
No doubt. They came up. Look, the defense came up huge in the big moments. I mean, they allowed a few different things to happen. And in the post-game show, Brian said he thought maybe that was a little bit by design. It was kind of let him do some of this, but we're not going to let him do that. And, that makes sense. I don't know if that's revisionist history or not, but that makes sense. We'll probably get into it more, I would imagine, in about an hour and a half. But I was a little not disappointed in the defense because that's not right. I was nervous about the defense to a degree for a minute, but they bowed up in the big moments, man, and that's what matters to me. Like they didn't bow up in the big moment against NIU, but they bowed up in the big moment on Saturday, and I'm all for it. Like that was fantastic.
And a good point out by Corey Dean. They had a delay of game in there as well as they're standing around, talking about what they're going to have on the flight home.
1, and then it became 4th and 6 or something like that. Wasn't that what it was? Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
That was awful. How do you not have a play there? How do you not have a play? Crazy.
Thanks for the super chat, Anthony, in honor of Dylan, who was under the weather yesterday. Dylan doing better, by the way?
He's upstairs sleeping. So no football practice for him. But,
sleep it off.
Kickers don't need to practice with the team. He'll be fine. He'll be fine. It's for some reason I hear it's going around, but it's like this respiratory, like not quite a pneumonia, but like a hard to breathe, crap in your chest thing, and it's making him really tired, like that kind of thing. So, hopefully we'll get it figured out. We'll just shove him with antibiotics and get this thing kicked by Friday, because Friday, Sean Steyers, huge game. Conference on the line.
Who they playing?
Elkhart.
All right.
Yep. Everybody's undefeated in the conference. Big moment, big thing. Former coach is over there now. A lot of, and it's homecoming. So it's just like all kinds of hoopla. So he's got to be ready for Friday. I have a feeling there's going to be some kicks involved.
Do you want to talk a little about the secondary first, or should we go through the walking wounded and the injured and out first? Should we go through that whole list?
Let's go with the negative first. Let's go through the walking wounded first. Yeah.
I mean, it goes together because of how the secondary had to piece things together to some extent. So I saw plenty of questions, like on the Champions Lounge and stuff this weekend about availabilities and all that stuff. And there's obviously no press conferences this week. A week from today will be the next time Marcus Freeman addresses any of this. And we'll get the game notes, and we'll get these people are questionable, these people are out for the game, these people are out for the season kind of thing. So here's what we have based on last week, what they put in the notes. And I didn't put everybody out for the season. I didn't put,
there's a lot of walk-ons,
depth chart type guys and walk-ons. Yeah. So Josh Burnham, of course, and Christian Gray were both game time scratches. And there had been some rumblings that Gray maybe injured himself last week. He tried to give it a go and ultimately was a scratch before the game. That led to freshman Leonard Moore playing quite a bit. And again, we'll kind of get into some of that. Burnham, I mean, gosh, with the situation the defensive ends are in.
They need him back.
Hopefully this bye comes at a good time, and he doesn't do anything maybe this week, and then hopefully he can get back out there next week, because it's been since the end of game 2, Northern Illinois, that he was hurt. So both of those guys were out. Guys who got injured to different degrees during Saturday's game. Sam Pendleton went out towards the end. Marcus Freeman said it was an injury situation, and that led to Sullivan Apsher playing the last 5 snaps the Irish offense took. Boubacar Traore, obviously a huge impact there, especially Jordan Botelho was having a breakout season. He's lost for the season. Boubacar comes in having his own breakout season, and then he gets hurt. Now, we don't know how long-term. I did ask him, Marcus Freeman, basically just said knee, and it's I didn't expect him to say much, but it's we're not going to get to talk to him for a week and a half. So it's
you might as well ask.
You got to at least throw it out there and see what he says. And he did say it was his knee, which doesn't sound good.
Oh, boy.
Jack Kaiser, kind of in and out, not exactly, sure if that was, personnel related or exactly what that was. And then Jordan Faison re-injured that ankle, and he ends up going out. So, I mean, that's a significant list right there. Josh Burnham, Christian Gray, Sam Pendleton, Boubacar Traore, Jack Kaiser, Jordan Faison. That's just this week. And then guys who missed the game as well. Cooper Flanagan, tight end, injured his ankle. He was out. Tay Johnson, he's been out for a little while, but he's someone who could return at some point. Gabriel Rubio, also the left foot during training camp. He's been out. He could return. And then Billy Schrouth, injured in the Purdue game, is expected back at some point. And again, could the bye week help? And, maybe we see him by Stanford. Again, we're not going to know until next week when we see the next injury report. And the fact that he was at least, he's been like this, but the fact that he's essentially listed out game to game, he's not out for the season, is good. I guess you want the upgrade to questionable to see if he moves into that next week. And then, of course, you've got Jordan Botelho, Ashton Craig, Charles Jagasaw, Kahana Kia, Jabron Payne, Chance Tucker, among others who are already out for the season right now with varying injuries. It is.
Yeah, the injury bug.
You talk about a mash unit, man.
Yeah, that's tough. That's really tough. I mean, they're having to piece together some different areas of this team, and you're hoping that the bye week will offer an opportunity for some of these guys to come back. I did see Gabriel Rubio on the sideline. Obviously he wasn't dressed, but he had one of those towels and he's jumping around on the sideline, hooping up everybody and getting everybody fired up. It's he's looking pretty good on that ankle, so I'm hoping that he can get back, and I'm hoping Billy Schrouth can get back. Obviously those would be massive, guys to get back. Josh Burnham would be another massive one because of the position that he plays and the injuries that we are potentially looking at that point. So, they need to get some guys back if they can get them back, just from a depth standpoint. I mean, it's a good thing this team is as deep as we said it was in the offseason because they are testing that depth across the board right now.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. And you know, again, like that's what makes, because that's a good team. It's a top 20. It was a top 15 team. It's a good team. I'm not, you know, I'm like the next day there were different outlets. I think ESPN, one of them, they're doing college football playoff predictors, and Louisville is one of the teams that they have, you know, like they list maybe 10, I don't know how many teams exactly they list, but they've got one of the better chances to make the playoff. Ultimately,
they've got along
with
hands.
Clemson, and USC is on that list. Notre Dame is on that list.
Sure, but Louisville plays Clemson and Miami,
right,
on their
Miami's
schedule.
On the list, obviously.
So they hold their, you know, postseason lives in their own hands. I mean, there's no doubt about that, right? They have every opportunity to make it. And look, they're going to give Miami, I would think anyway, they're going to give Miami and Clemson a run for their money. I don't know if they're going to win or not, but they're going to give them a run for their money. They're going to the championship of the ACC at the very least goes through Louisville. I'll say that much.
Mm-hmm.
And so whether they have a say in it for themselves or for somebody else.
Yeah, there'd be something if Louisville could win the ACC this year, or even just
Absolutely.
get to the ACC championship game. That would go a long
massive.
way.
Oh, it'd be massive. It'd be
and
massive.
I mean,
you know,
I was going to say you got Army and Navy,
yep,
who could both be on a collision course to play in the American Conference Championship game.
And look, I know it's early, but Texas A&M, their only losses to Notre Dame as well.
Yeah.
They're not looking terrible themselves. So
still hanging in there.
You know, you can't just sit back and just watch what all of your opponents have done, obviously, but you also can't take for granted the wins that Notre Dame has. So I think that's the point we're trying to make. Look, A&M's good football team. Louisville's good football team, right? I mean, they're both in the top 20 when they played them. So, you know, they're good football teams.
Came down to a 7-minute instant replay for Miami to
That's
win
true.
The other day. And you know what it still says in the left-hand column? W.
Exactly.
Still a win, no matter how it looked. And you know, Cam Ward had probably his worst game as a Hurricane so far as well.
I mean, I hate to if you
I know you don't like Cam Ward, so you don't even have to go there.
Oh no, I'm not going there today. That's not a today situation, but there are multiple teams on Notre Dame's schedule who are still undefeated, by the way, Sean. So
I think USC's only got one loss as well, right?
It's to Michigan.
Right.
Their one loss is to Michigan. Army and Navy are both undefeated as we speak, right? Florida State, obviously not good. I don't believe Virginia is. Yeah, well, Virginia's 3-1 right now. Their only loss is to Maryland. So, you know, there's a lot of wins sprinkled throughout Notre Dame's schedule, you know, moving forward. So, you know, I don't think their strength of schedule is going to be as bad as people think when it's all said and done.
Army and Navy are really helping them right now. If they can continue that would be really good for Notre Dame. Really good for Notre Dame.
Navy's putting up points, man. I mean,
yeah.
Look, they beat Memphis pretty good. They gave up 44 to Memphis, but they also put up 56. So, and then that Memphis team obviously, you know, beat Florida State. Now, not that that's saying a whole lot because Florida State's not good, but they beat Florida State 20-12, and then, you know, Navy put up 56 on them. So, you know, I don't think there's going to be a win in Florida State's future anytime soon. They barely beat Cal, and then they got beat by SMU pretty darn good, and their next game is against Clemson. So, yeah, they got a rough road to hoe.
Tommy's right. Rutgers creeping in there. They're a playoff sleeper. Indiana, 5-0 for the first time since 1967. 5-0. Yep.
5-0, baby.
Now, again, I mean, who have they played? Well, I looked at their schedule, and it's not overly tough. And they're on that list of potential playoff teams as well. I don't know if it'll hold up, but man, if you're Indiana, you're pretty excited about 5-0 right now.
They're ranked 23rd right now. They're undefeated. They're 5-0. They got a great chance of winning this week against Northwestern. Then they go into the bye. They could be 6-0 going into the bye. And then they're hosting Nebraska, which, look, Nebraska's a good team, but they're not infallible, right? Then they got Washington. They could definitely beat Washington's 3-2 right now. And then they got Michigan State. Michigan State's 3-2 right now, right? Then they've got Michigan. No one would love for them to beat Michigan more than me. Then they got another bye. Then they got Ohio State. Then they got Purdue. Look, I see 2 losses.
I mean, it beefs up at the end is what, like, they could conceivably be at least 7-0, right? Before.
Yes, in Nebraska's that would be a tough one, I think.
But still, conceivably.
But they could be.
Worst case, it's a tough. Nebraska will probably be favored by 3. Is it at Nebraska?
No, it is not.
It's in Bloomington. Okay.
It is in Bloomington. And then they get Washington and Bloomington as well.
What's Nebraska? Nebraska's a name. Like, that's.
Sure. Absolutely.
Literally, that's all they are. Right.
And they were cresting, you know what I mean? Like, they were here, but like.
They were cresting, and then they lost another close game. So they're still just.
Illinois, yeah.
Yeah.
And then they beat Purdue, and we know how easy that is. But
mm-hmm.
But then look, I give them a puncher's chance against Washington and Michigan State, and then they finish up with Michigan, Ohio State, and Purdue. So look,
Washington's not that good this year.
Michigan might be bruised and battered by the time they play IU as well. So because they still got to play Illinois, Oregon, they got some guys. They have some teams to play too. So hey, this could be IU's year, man. Cignetti promised the national championship. He's delivering, baby. He's delivering right now.
He is. So let's talk about the job this secondary did for the Irish Saturday, because as we talked about, Christian Gray was out the entire game. You just had Jaden Mickey announce earlier in the week that he's played his 4 games. He's done. He's going to go hit the portal in December. He's going to redshirt this year. So 2 big losses right there, just going into this game, that you weren't going to have either one of those guys available. Then Benjamin Morrison gets injured in the second half, and he's out for a stretch. So now you don't have any of your 3 top cornerbacks playing against a pass-happy Louisville offense with some really talented Cardinal wide receivers out there. And, basically, like Marcus Freeman, Mike Mickens, and Al Golden had to go pretty deep into their bags of tricks to find some answers for Louisville's passing.
You have to have a plan for plan B, C, and D. And we didn't have a lot of practice reps I'll tell you that, with expecting Christian to try to give it a go. So we didn't have a whole bunch of practice reps, but it happened. BMO goes down in the second half, and we knew if that happened, we were going to put Jordan Clark at corner, and he did a good job, and you got to have a plan. Okay, hey, we're going to move this guy that hasn't been at corner this year but has previously to the corner position. Here's our game plan if he has to go to the corner position. So you have to have plan B, plan C, and plan D ready to roll, and they did a good job.
Plan B, plan C, and plan D all in one, Vince. Like, all things considered, again, like, I mean, a couple of those you just had to tip your hat to Louisville's receivers. That freaking one-handed diving catch, and then Ja'Cory Brooks with his second touchdown in the back corner of the end zone. I think that was the last touchdown that Louisville ended up scoring. That was a one-handed catch as well. It's like you're going to get some talented dudes out there. But what'd you think about how they were able to sort of piece things together? You're on
Leonard Moore obviously played amazingly well for a true freshman. There's no 2 ways about that, right? I mean, he stepped up against arguably the best receiving core that they've faced so far this season, and he did yeoman's work, man. I mean, they caught a couple of balls on him, and there was a couple of nice moves and things like that, and a couple of amazing catches that you just, again, you tip your hat, like you said. But I thought he played very, very well. I wasn't sure what they were going to do when Morrison went down. They ended up moving Clark, obviously, out to corner. So they had obviously at least practiced that a little bit and talked about it based on Jaden Mickey leaving and sitting in the student section on Saturday. So I thought he did fine. They tried to test him a few times, and I thought he did a good job, for the most part. The very last pass, I mean, it's kind of a let them play kind of a situation. I think they were both tugging and pulling on both of, on each other. So I don't think you make a call there. So I think that makes a lot of sense. But I thought he held up just fine when his number was called to go out to corner. So obviously you want Christian Gray to be back. Obviously you want Morrison to be healthy. That's your best opportunity at, being a top level defense. There's no doubt about that. I think things are going to be just fine in that realm, at least with the injuries that they have, right? So as long as those guys can stay healthy, they're going to be just fine. And you've got a third corner in Leonard Moore, and you don't have to worry about that either.
Yeah, and I mean, Leonard Moore led the team with 7 tackles. He had a forced fumble
and
as
he's
well.
not afraid to hit somebody.
Yeah, he ran down Tyler Shuck on that big run that Shuck had on the
Nobody saw him coming, man.
Really the only run that Shuck had the entire day, and then boom, there's Leonard Moore. And then Clark had 5 tackles. I got caught in a cough. I didn't want to cough into my microphone. And Ron Hurd had 4 tackles and a couple of pass breakups as well. It's like, again, there's some plays that Louisville's receivers made, but you've got a 7th-year quarterback who's played the 5 previous years at 2 different schools. And, Ja'Cory Brooks obviously started off at Alabama and ultimately transferred to Louisville. And, again, they made some plays, but I thought they played exceptionally well considering the circumstances and considering you essentially have one All-American / first-round type guy this year who was out. And then Christian Gray is going to fall into that category by next year, so, and you're without both of those guys. So I thought it was just amazing. Here's Freeman on Leonard Moore's day.
Yeah, Christian was going to try to go. He had a shoulder strain and a shoulder sprain, and he was going to try to go. We thought he was going to be able to go, and after the pregame warm-up, just he wasn't ready. He wasn't going to be able to get the job done for what we need him to do. So we went to Leonard, and we have a lot of confidence in Leonard, and Leonard played really well.
He did. Made plays. He was just all over the field. Like, I don't think that you could ask for more, no pun intended, from a guy like Leonard Moore making his first career start out there.
No, he did. He did a fantastic job and kind of feet to the fire situation. It's not like he came in against, Miami or whatever, right? He came in against, one of the best receiving corps that they're going to see this year. And he did fine. He did just fine. He'll get better as he gets more experience and all of that. But, man, he was not afraid to get his nose dirty. He wasn't quitting on plays, the fumble that he caused and all that. Like, he played very, very well. Very, very. I'm very happy that he's the third corner. I'll just say that, as long as the other 2 guys are healthy.
Yep, for sure. So there were a couple comments that I wanted to get to here from the chat. We're going to get to the offense here in just a minute, but Michael said, so is Rubio out for the season? Be nicer to get closer to a 300-pound body if he's redshirting. There, as of now, what they've been saying is they're expecting him back sometime mid-season. Again, we'll hopefully get an update on that on Monday when they put out their latest injury report and all that kind of stuff and see what Marcus Freeman has to say. And, then the Vipers, you lose Boubacar, and you're like, much like the corners, you're basically piecing the defensive ends together when you don't have any Josh Burnham already. You don't have Jordan Patelho done for the season, and then Boubacar gets hurt in the second half. Logan Thomas went out there and was making some play. Like, he didn't show up a lot in the stat sheet, but who really cares about that, right? But like, he was impacting. He was making plays, and if not for just that little bit of a flick of the wrist by Tyler Shuck, Logan Thomas has got his first career touchdown on the fumble return as well before they overturned it.
The youth is something else, right? I wrote down.
That's what stands out when you see all these young guys making plays, and you can throw Drake Bowen in there as well. You can throw KVA in there, obviously, as well, and all these other guys. Yeah.
At one point in the game, on defense at the same time, were Drake Bowen, KVA, Bryce Young, Logan Thomas, and Leonard Moore. Like, that's a lot of youth, but that's a lot of talent right there. And that's 5 guys, that were on that defense that were making plays, and they had them out there at the same time.
So I wanted to talk just a little bit about hear Marcus Freeman's comments on the kind of how things started with the Devin Ford fumble of the opening kickoff. Louisville gets the ball at the Irish 24, and it takes just 3 plays to get a touchdown. But as you'll hear here from Marcus Freeman, he was fairly happy with how they were able to respond after that. Basically, it quiets the stadium there for a bit. Everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, are you kidding me?"
We knew going into this game, Louisville, I think, under Braum is top in the country in terms of opening drives. In terms of opening drives on defense, I don't think they allowed an opening drive touchdown since he's been there. And then on offense, they're top 5 in terms of scoring rate. So that was the emphasis for us, start fast. And we start with a fumble, But it was great to see our guys reload, our offense be able to go out there and drive 75 yards down the field and score. I mean, it was huge. And we were aggressive. And we handled adversity all in those first quarter.
Vince, I mean, a mistake like that right off the bat, it's like it's the kind of thing that we've seen. We've been doing this for a long time. Like how many times have you seen something like that just doom the rest of the day? And then the offense was able to march right down the field and score. Like how important do you think that was for Notre Dame?
Oh, it's massively important. Massively important, right? I mean, look, that deflated the entire stadium, including the press box, where you and I were looking at each other like, oh boy. Like, it just, especially with the start that Notre Dame had offensively in the last game. I mean, we were all a little nervous about where this game was going to go after. Like, you're like, okay, please, just a field goal, just give up a field goal. And it's like, oh, nope, that's a touchdown. And then, you're like, okay. And then, it's a touchback. So you got to go the length of the field essentially. And they do it. I mean, they go on a double-digit drive, 75 yards, take 6 minutes off the clock. And, I mean, it was absolute poetry in motion on that drive. And whether it was the offensive line kicking the tail of the defensive line for Louisville, or it was, Riley Leonard should have been 6 of 6 on that drive without it, but there was a drop. So he was 5 of 6 on that drive. I mean, it was just, I mean, they were bringing out different personnel. They were going in motion. I mean, they were doing everything that you want a team to do, everything that we wanted them to do. They were doing on that drive, and it ended up as 7 points. And all of a sudden, okay, now it's even 7-7. Here we go. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I mean, like, what stands out as well, the fact that they were able to have some of the success that they did in the passing game. Again, was it 100% from start to finish? Of course not. But, again, if you want to look at numbers, Riley Leonard had a better completion percentage than Tyler Shuck, and Shuck is supposed to be the passer. Leonard completed 74% of his passes. Shuck was just 59% against a makeshift secondary, So, like, think about, again, just like the talent that affected it impacted that and everything else.
And people are giving, Shuck his roses and his flowers, or however you want to say it, because he, threw for 264 yards and 3 touchdowns. But he also only threw for 59%. Like, they had to throw the ball 41 times for him to get those 264 yards and 3 touchdowns and 1 interception, right? I mean, they made Louisville and Tyler Shuck work for everything that he got. And yes, again, stats are for losers. I agree with you, because Notre Dame stats were not good in this game.
You're coming around.
Louisville stats were better. Okay, they were better. But if you dig into them a little bit, they had to work for everything that they got, for sure.
Well, they did. They absolutely did. And, just like you look at the rushing total, was it a little bit alarming that Louisville was able to have some success the way they did rushing the ball in the first half? Well, of course it was. But they had over 100 yards rushing at halftime, and they ended up with 131 in the game. Now some of it's okay. You've got to pass a little bit more, but I mean, it was a relative.
Yeah, but
it's not like Notre Dame was blowing them out the entire game.
Right. Completely agree with that. It was, and again, Notre Dame was in control of that game. I mean, they were in control of that game, even though in the moment it didn't always feel that way, but they were. I mean, and we're going to talk about that later tonight, about some of the philosophy with how they were kind of operating and doing some different things. I mean, I don't like the fact they were trying to protect a 10-point lead. Much rather have a 17-point lead or, 24-point lead. But, that's what they decided to do, and they ended up doing it. It's just a little bumpy there for a minute. That's all.
Yeah. And I think the point I was going to make, I don't think I made it, was Bo Collins has been your most consistent volume receiver through the first 4 games of the season. He has a couple of uncharacteristic drops in the first half. Targeted 5 times. He had just 1 catch for 5 yards, and they still had a more than effective passing game. By the way, it was all said and done. And T.S. Smith 0323 says, just want to throw this out there. People saying you can't win with this style of offense, saying you have to throw all the time. Notre Dame and Kentucky both got wins playing the same style.
I mean, you can say that Notre Dame can't win playing this style, but this style is going to continue to get better as the year goes on. I mean, it has gotten better from week 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, and it's going to continue to get better. So, this isn't the style that the style on September 28th is not the style they're going to be playing in December if they have an opportunity.
I mean, we've seen over the last couple of weeks the passing game evolve, and that's all we've been wanting.
Correct.
At least some of us anyway. Like you and I, like we've talked about incremental involvement of the passing game.
Right.
And the last couple games, deep shots, right? Deep shot to Jaden Greathouse, which we'll go ahead and we will talk about right here. He gets his first touchdown reception on the 3rd drive, a 34-yard touchdown strike from Riley Leonard. And looks like I put the wrong photo up, but I think this is hang on just a second. Let me make sure here what I've got. Go ahead, see. No, that's right. Well, here's Riley Leonard first. I thought this was kind of a funny response when I asked him if his eyes lit up when he saw Greathouse break open the way he did.
Dude, because I'm like, dude, don't miss him, because I missed a couple last week. But it was good, man. Always a good feeling.
Yeah, he was as DK said, he definitely he was pretty happy, kind of talking about that, to see Jaden Greathouse be able to take that in. I thought it was really good for him.
Well, and it's tough for a quarterback, unfortunately, and I know a lot of people won't necessarily understand it. But when a guy is that wide open, it's like you just want to reach out and just hand him the football. You know what I mean? And you sometimes you tend to aim it a little bit more, and so it doesn't really go where you want it to go. That's where you just want him to just sit back and just put it there. But I mean, he was so wide open. It was a great play design, which is what got him open in the first place, and a little bit of miscommunication, I guess, by the Louisville defense. But I mean, he was so wide open, and it just was beautiful to see.
Okay, so here's Greathouse. I just had the wrong one up there. Here's Greathouse talking about that play.
Yeah, I mean, we just got a great look that we wanted for the play, and we ran it to perfection. I mean, Bo did a great job of clearing out that safety and making sure that I was wide open. So it took all of us to get me open on that play, and it was something we've been working all week, and we were just able to execute during the game.
I mean, it was beautiful play design because, like he said, Bo Collins is doing that little, I don't know if it's kind of like a dig kind of corner, like just across the middle, and like he was open first, and I'm like, oh, just hit him, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, yeah.
Well, and they were basically stressing that single high safety, which is exactly what you want to do in that situation. Mm-hmm. And the safety didn't even really know what to do. He didn't do a very good job of covering Bo Collins. I mean, he was over the top of him, but he was like 7 yards away. So you're right, Bo Collins was open too. But Jaden Greathouse was open even more for a touchdown. Bo Collins still might have scored if he catches it in stride, and he might beat that safety to the corner. But that safety,
it still would have at the very least been a nice gain that Collins makes, as long as he holds on to the ball. But I think you're going to take the 34-yard touchdown.
I did. I took it.
Quite honestly, that's the kind of stuff that we thought we'd see from Jaden Greathouse this season. So it was
for sure
to be able to do that.
Yeah, and he had himself a decent game as well. He had that nice catch, on the sideline, which is also a nice throw by Riley Leonard, as he was rolling out, keeping his eyes downfield, put it right where his guy could get it. So Riley Leonard is absolutely growing from week to week to week, and the offense is growing with him from week to week to week.
So circle back real quick. Marcus Freeman was asked about what he liked about Leonard on the first drive, the first time the Irish had the ball on the first drive by the offense. And I thought it was interesting because he talked much less just about Leonard, and it was more a macro kind of picture.
It's the offense I want to see. Yeah. That's a perfect drive on offense, and it's not just about Riley. We ran the ball well too, and so I thought our entire offense did a really, really good job on that first drive.
And I think that's what it's about. Like those first really 2.5, because the second drive was just Riley Leonard, after the Louisville fumble, taking it in himself. But the first drive and the third drive, the first drive that ended with the touchdown pass to Jeremiah Love, the third one that ends with the touchdown pass to Jaden Greathouse, and of course the touchdown drive late in the game that ultimately ended up being the difference. I mean, that's the offense, and like between the play design of Mike Denbrock and the little, we've seen Riley Leonard do the sprint outs a few times, right? He did it earlier in the game. He did it 2 times last week. He didn't complete any of them. And he starts a little sprint out to his right, and then he stops and he looks back to the left, and there's Jeremiah Love for that screen pass that we've kind of been waiting for. And he takes it to the house. And like Mike Denbrock just has especially when you compare him to offensive coordinators we've seen here at Notre Dame over the past few years, like he sets things up so nicely, that he can go deep with in the second half. And that was just a prime example of it.
And that's the experience, right? I mean, that's the experience that he has. He's been there before. He's seen it, and he knows exactly what he needs to see in order to call something or get something to where they want. You know what I mean? Like that just comes with experience of doing the job. And he does a very, very, very good job of it. There's no doubt.
Yep, for sure. For sure. But Louisville's defense had kept opposing offenses from scoring 21 straight games on their opening drive going into Saturday's game. And then Leonard leads them on a 15-play, 75-yard touchdown drive the first time Notre Dame has the ball. And I tweeted about that after it happened. And some people said, well, I don't know, not so fast, because of that, the fumble on the opening kickoff. That does not count because the offense never possessed the ball. And when you look at the official stats from this game, that kickoff does not count as a drive because the offense never possessed the ball. So like Notre Dame halted that 21 game streak with that 75-yard touchdown drive against Louisville Saturday afternoon. So just to really, again, I thought it was an entertaining day, a fun day. And I think anytime you can ride into a bye week with a win over a good ranked team, you got to be feeling pretty good about yourself, especially when you can finally do it at home and like look mostly good in the process. There are obviously some things that are still going to need to be tweaked here and there and stuff like that. And we'll get into some of the turnovers here in rapid fire as well. So, well, Vince, you do have another show to do yet today.
Whatever. Let's go.
Are you ready for rapid fire?
Oh, I've been waiting for rapid fire. Let's do it, baby.
I like how you try to downplay it. I like that. I like that. So we're going to start with Marcus Freeman talking a little bit about Riley Leonard. Well, maybe we're not.
Uh-oh.
Of course. Is that the one that hang on just a second here. Let me see if I can find it. Do you see anything there in the
Negatory.
Nothing in the chat that you want to talk about here for a second?
Oh, in the chat.
Yeah.
Well, let's see what we got here.
Because I'm finding it. I'm digging it out of this folder here. So
Anthony says he hopes Marcus Freeman allows the defense to play wide open all the time, and is not the first sign of having a double lead in the second half and goes all conservative on offense. So yes, he does let the defense do their own thing. There's no doubt about it. And the thing about the offense, they did go a little bit more conservative. Now, there were extenuating circumstances for that as well. Health of the quarterback was definitely one of them. I think they brushed with, they had a brush with, oh crap, we can't let Riley get hurt. And I think there's part of that, right? And so I think they did go a little bit conservative at that point. But I agree. I mean, I didn't like some of the play calling in the second half when it came to offense. But you have to remember, when you take Riley Leonard out of this offense from a running standpoint, okay, the running game is not going to be as good because they can key on those running backs. That's why Riley Leonard being a running threat is so important. We got a visual of what it would be like if there is a quarterback in the game who is not a running threat like Riley Leonard with the way that this team is currently constructed. If it's just a kind of an old-fashioned running game and, sit in the pocket, throw, like that kind of a deal, like the running game is not as effective when Riley Leonard is not somebody that they have to key on. And we saw that because they weren't going to run Riley Leonard after he got hurt or after he fell on the ball, kind of a deal, right? So
Yep.
I think we got to see something that we needed to see, to be perfectly honest with you. This team needs a healthy Riley Leonard to win games.
Absolutely. How much of a fully healthy Riley Leonard we're going to see, I don't know. This bye week will be nice, though. And then the fact that you have a bye week coming up, maybe that's like where Riley Leonard is considered. And some of these other guys, since you do have so many injuries, maybe it's because I wasn't like a huge fan of the two byes coming into this season, but where they are right now.
You are now.
Going into October, coming out of October, you're going to have bye weeks.
Yeah, so, and that's
going
to be huge.
Course, yep. He went down after a 305-pound Louisville defensive lineman came down on him at the end of a run in the first half. And here's what Freeman said about it.
Play I went out, got the wind knocked out of me, which is kind of soft. Like, it's weird saying that now. You got to go out for a play to get the wind knocked out of you. But, like, hey, that was terrible. Like, I couldn't breathe. So, it was really no problem after, a couple minutes. But, it's a bad feeling getting that wind knocked out of you. So, it really didn't play an impact on me.
Well, you can see I'm struggling with my sound bites right now, Vince, but that was Riley Leonard talking about it.
That was appropriate, though. That's what we were talking about.
Have you ever had the wind knocked out of you before?
Not to that degree. I've never had a 300-plus pound guy fall on top of me when the ball was in my stomach. That's for sure. I've had like a shoulder stinger, like stuff like that, but never the wind knocked out of me. I've seen it a bunch of times, though, and guys are grasping for air. Like, you can't breathe, and you, of course, start freaking out and, assume the worst at that point. And then that's why you go to the ground and you get help, right? And it takes a second to kind of get over something like that. Have you had that done to you?
It has been, probably since I was a kid, where I could, because like by the time I was in high school, I was not, I never got to carry the football. And it seems like usually what happens is like, you come down basically like Leonard did, like with your sternum or the ball right underneath your sternum or right around that area, and you come down on it. And then especially, again, when you've got 305 extra pounds coming down, like that's when you have that happen. So, like you said, it's been a long time and never to that extent as well. I've seen stars plenty of times, whether it was football or wrestling or, whatever it happened to be. Saw plenty of stars, but the wind knocked out of me, like you said, especially not like that. Like he looked like he was in some serious pain.
Well, it was, let's be honest, it was an illegal play. That's unnecessary.
I was shocked because he was already down. I was shocked that you're not supposed to be able to, as a defensive lineman, just come down with your body down on top of quarterback like that. Yeah.
It was way after the play was over. Way after.
Yep. So here's Marcus Freeman on Leonard staying in the game.
He's banged up. We ran him. We knew we were going to have to run him. He's tough guy, man. He is tough, sacrifices his body. I think I think he might have got kneed in his thigh or something like that. I don't know exactly what it was, but he said, I'm good to go. I want the ball in my hands. And so that's the competitor he is, man. He's a tough person, man.
Fill in the blank. Riley Leonard's toughness, Vince, that you heard Marcus Freeman talk about is blank.
Expected from him. Like I expect him to be that guy almost to a fault. And I was just thinking to myself as I was listening to that soundbite, there's a fine line as a head coach where you throw the guy back out there, because he's telling you that he's good, but then also knowing your guy and knowing when it's probably time to not send him back out on the field. Now, I don't think that Riley Leonard has gotten to the point where he couldn't go back out on the field. I think, Marcus Freeman has made the right decision both times, or, all the times that it looked like he got a little dinged up, but it may come to a point somewhere in the season where you have to make the hard call. And even though he's asking to go back in, you're like, you know what, that's not
save that, because we'll be talking about that here in just a minute.
Okay.
But to me, like what we've seen from Riley Leonard so far, it's like, you knew this guy had a level of toughness, but it's like we've seen Rocky Balboa level toughness so far from Riley Leonard. And I know you're not into boxing. I know you're not into the Rocky movies and all that kind of stuff, Vince. So you'll have to bear with me here a little bit. But he just takes a beating and keeps coming at you. That's what's amazing from what we've seen. It's like when Rocky's got his face pounded in, which happened basically in every Rocky movie, like to kind of give you the cliff notes, since again, you've never bothered to actually watch some of the greatest cinematic excellence in sports movie history. It's like his eyes are all swollen and puffed shut, and he's like, he's sitting there and he's like, Mick, I can't see, you got to cut my eye. And Mick takes the razor blade and cuts his eye open, like that's Riley Leonard, what we've seen from him so far. And, you could talk about passing and accuracy and whatever else, but like just what, think about what we knew about Leonard's injuries, like just when he came here with the foot and the ankle, and we were worried about that. And so far, like that hasn't been an issue at all. He's like every other part of his body has been beaten up so far, and then like 5 games, and he's not a big guy either. That's what, like when you see him, like when he was doing the post game and when you stand next to him, he's obviously tall, but he's very slender. He's built like a shooting guard, and like he just keeps a licking and keeps on ticking. It's really pretty amazing. Just the high level, again, like you knew this guy was going to have some toughness to him, but it's been above and beyond, I think, everything that we've seen from this guy in just 5 games.
Yep, no doubt about it. And he long line of tough quarterbacks, right? I mean, Jack Cohn gets his finger dislocated in a game, and I mean, these kids want to play, and that's what they're here to do, and I freaking love it.
Cinderella Man is a better.
Boy,
come on,
here we
Steven.
go.
How many sequels to Cinderella Man did they make, Steven? The answer is 0. Okay, so anyway, Freeman fielded a question, kind of touching on a little bit what you were talking about with the Riley Leonard injury, like staying with Riley Leonard. I left the question in there, so here we go.
Until Riley got a little banged up there in the second quarter, he was probably playing his best football of the year. How fine is the line between, staying with him, knowing that things are a little bit limited offensively, or did the 2-score lead in the defense just dictate the approach that you took in the second half?
Yeah, I mean, after the first half, I think we were up 24-14. I thought our offense played lights out the first half, so there was no even consideration of changing quarterbacks going in the second half. We didn't have a lot of success in the second half, and I always say you're gonna blame the quarterback. That's what you do. You're supposed to, right? And you're gonna blame the head coach. That's what you're supposed to do. That's why we're in these positions. But we'll go back and see what decisions Riley made in the second half that weren't good. But damn it, he played really well in that first half. Our whole entire offense didn't play great the second half, and so it's easy to point the finger at Riley. But I'm proud of the way he performed today and led our offense to victory.
So what do you think, Vince?
I think he did a good job of shutting down that question, frankly. I didn't like the question, but then again, I generally don't like those kinds of questions. And he, Marcus Freeman's exactly
like the way
right.
it was worded just surprised me, I think.
Well, it was the same person that asked the last question about why didn't you listen to the crowd and take out Riley Leonard? Like,
right.
Those are terrible questions. I'm sorry. Those are bad questions. Why are you harping on why the starter is in the game? Why is that even a line of questioning? I'm sorry.
Right. And I mean, if all he did was get the wind knocked out of him,
Right,
of
that's
course
not
you're
an
gonna go
injury.
right back to him. Yeah,
That's
That's
not
like-
an injury.
right. I was a little surprised as well. Like it just felt like, especially when you piggyback it with the question from last week about the crowd sentiment said they wanted a change at quarterback and
Right.
why you stuck with it. And it just, I
Right.
don't know.
Well, never
Odd
mind.
place to be, I think.
I'm gonna save that for off the air. What I wanted to say.
I respect
I will tell you.
the person asking the question quite
Me
a bit.
too.
But I like I
mean,
texted you at the time and I was scratching my head as to that angle on the question, You're muted.
Oh, that's because I was typing. I was typing to you what I wanted to say.
Okay.
I just feel like it's probably not smart to say it out loud.
Gotcha. Some people are asking who it is. I left the voice in there. I'm not gonna call
Yeah,
out. I'm not gonna name names. So I'll let you guys and gals kind of work that angle on your own. So Freeman fielded a question about staying with, okay, well, we just did that one. Max Hurlman, a little bit of a surprise out there. Grad transfer from Colgate, took over the punt return job Saturday afternoon.
Decision came about in practice when this week when we were game planning against our punt unit, we wanted to be aggressive, and we knew we could probably get the op time to be affected by our aggressiveness, and we thought Faison would give us the best chance to, maybe get back there and block a punt. But Max has shown us that he's reliable, will catch the ball, and will be aggressive. And so he did a really good job stepping up today.
So Vince, what do you think about Hurlman moving past Jordan Faison and Jaden Greathouse to take over that punt return job?
Love it. Absolutely love it. That'll be the one thing that he's going to focus on. Obviously, he's on some other special teams as well. But I love it. I think he's aggressive with it. I think that he has good hands. I mean, he literally got interfered with on that one fair catch and still caught the ball. And I like the fact that he questioned the ref as to why he didn't throw the flag. Like, I have no problem with that. So I think this is a great move. He's punt returning.
And he should have thrown the flag. Like, what is going on out there?
100%.
Like,
100%.
how are you standing that close and you don't see that guy run into him? Like,
right.
Unbelievable.
And the other piece of it is he's also the up man now on kick returns too. So he's back there for both return games. And I think it's great. I think it's great because look, Faison has proven that he's a little injury prone, right? So let him focus on just being an offensive player, and Greathouse is an offensive player too. Let him just do that. This is great. I think it's great.
I do too. And look, this is something that I think that fans kind of got tired of a few years back, when you would see, it's like, what, why don't they have somebody better back there, returning punts? Why don't we have big punt returns and all that kind of stuff? I mean, this was a guy who was an All-Patriot League special teams ace at Colgate, and it's part of why Marty Biaggi wanted him to come here to Notre Dame, and he's been on a lot of Notre Dame special teams. And of course, we get the Bronx cheer from Joe. Fair catch, you. Look, the most important aspect, and any special teams coach is going to tell you this, and every head coach is going to tell you it as well. The first most important thing about being a punt returner is securing the damn ball. You have to catch the ball before you can think about going anywhere with it. Obviously, that was an issue last week. And then, hey, look, he only got one return because he did have the fair catch. He should have been interfered with. There should have been some yards added on to it. But, like the one return that he had, he made a nice little wiggle move. I don't think this guy is just going to be a stand back there and fair catch it guy. Like he's going to want to go, but he's got the number one priority down, and that's secure the football. So I love it. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Love it quite a bit. Do you buy or sell Jadarian Price and Devin Ford riding the bench the rest of the game after their fumbles on Saturday?
I don't mind the Devin Ford one, but I don't like the Jadarian Price one. I don't know if that's fair.
You're going to say more talent should get some leeway.
Well, yeah, kind of. I mean, look, rules are fair. They're not equal. Okay. That's how rules work. Okay.
I get you.
That's, I think that
Audric Estime paid the price more than once, right?
Right. And here's the thing. Devin Ford didn't get benched. He still played on other special teams. He just wasn't returning the football.
But he wasn't allowed to touch the football because you needed his body out there to play some of those special teams.
I wanted Jadarian Price's body out there too. So
yeah, but are you going to trust him to carry the football? Like, I remember a certain head freshman football coach and running backs coach one time when a certain fullback fumbled in a game. Like, I know he played, same thing. He played the rest of the game on defense because you needed him out there, because you needed a middle linebacker out there. Do you remember that, Dario? Do you remember that, Dario? But what did he do? Personal. What did he not do? He didn't carry the football the rest of the game, but he played defense out there because you still need him on defense. It's
pretty sound coaching. It's pretty sound coaching. But the running back,
no problem with it.
Yeah, the running back.
You're fine having your leading tackler out there on the other side of the ball. You just don't want him carrying the ball as a fullback.
But whoever that head coach was, the running back on that team ended up going D1. So I feel pretty good about that guy still carrying the football a lot too.
Oh, we're writing it off now. That was the last carry of young Jesse Steyer's career.
Was it really?
He did have a pick six. He did have a reception. You actually moved him to tight end later.
Yeah, he had that reception, the one-handed
snag over the middle. Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. That was the last time he carried the football the rest of the year. Still played linebacker, still did all the other stuff.
I may have to post the highlight video from that season on the board sometime just for fun. It's a bye week, right? They can watch
just so everybody can see number 5 do his thing out there. The little middle
Jesse
linebacker
Steyers
running around,
doing his thing. Yes, absolutely. And with the people don't understand, Sean, how good they had it back then, because I had you to do the play-by-play of the highlight reel, right? Because I put it together, and then I went over to your house, and I'm like, "Hey, here's what happens in this play," and you just gave it your all.
Cranked it out.
Man, it was beautiful. It's beautiful.
We had fun.
It's the best
we had
highlight
fun doing that.
Ever. Yeah, we did.
Well, you had me do one for the freshman team the year before too, and I didn't even know most of those guys. So
exactly, and that team was 1-8. So you made them look like freaking world beaters. That's for sure. That's what a highlight video does.
But that group and Jesse's group and the
group after
the group after them.
Yeah,
turned in the best season of Adams High School football
ever.
Since I think it was like I was going to say at least since 1986, I think something like that. By the time
Johnson,
by the time your first freshman group that went 1-8 were seniors, and Jesse and Shaq and were juniors, and Pinter was a sophomore, and tons of other guys out there. But best season of Adams football.
I like to say the foundation was built their freshman year. Just saying.
Hey, just saying. I think everyone needs to save up and remind. Remind Jesse about that. He'll have some excuse about, well, I should have this and Bobby should have that, and
The fumble did not make it on the highlight video. I know that's shocking to everybody.
I'm sure it didn't. I'm sure it didn't. So Steven says, buy or sell Josh Burnham moving to Viper, and we see Bryce Young at strong side.
It's definitely possible. I mean, I could see them kind of jockeying some things around because of injury, depending on what the outcome of the Boubacar Traore injury is, that kind of thing. You could, because now I think you're lopsided at one position versus the other. So it's definitely a possibility, but we're going to have to wait and see kind of what those injuries are. You're getting Gabe Rubio back. I know he's in the middle, but still, it has to do with your defensive line. So I am very interested to see kind of what they do in the offseason with both lines, or not offseason, bye week.
Yeah, I mean, because of Botelho and Boubacar being out, and the fact that Burnham has, I mean, there's major depth issues there right now.
Mhm.
And I still think if Burnham comes back healthy, he's your best option on the strong side. I think he could give you some flexibility to play both, depending on situation and stuff like that, and who else you would want. I mean, Oben had a little bit better day, I felt like, Saturday, but
still, he's not doing.
If you
what
move
we hoped
Burnham
he
over
would
to
do.
Viper, then what are you going to do? You've got to have some other bodies over there on the strong side, and I think that you can. There's some linebacker flexibility, and I know Brian has talked about Zinter, like moving Zinter there potentially. Maybe that happens. What's going to happen with Brennan Vernon? I don't know. And I saw in the Champions Lounge, like, people were asking about guys like Vernum and Armel Mukum and stuff like that. And Marcus Freeman's been asked about those guys earlier in the year. I mean, it was within the last 2 or 3 weeks, and he basically said they're not ready right now. And that was, I think, talking more about nose and 3 technique than necessarily playing outside. But this bye week could be really huge in terms of being able to experiment with some of that and see who could be a fit. Because at the very least, I mean, like, think about it this way. You're only, like, think about that list of injuries that we went through. You're only 5 games into the season. So you're not even halfway through the season right now. Nobody wants to see more injuries, but at the very least, you've got to build some depth there, because, like, just the way things have gone so far, who knows what the end of November and into December is going to look like at this point.
So true. So true.
Yeah. Going back, Connor said, how many good sequels to Rocky did they make? Again, it's like, you guys want to just shoot these darts right here at my heart on this Rocky stuff. All but Rocky 5, I would say, are quality sequels, because even though Rocky 2, slower than Rocky 1 for most of it, in the storyline with Adrian in the hospital, it was like, it seemed like it drug on forever, but you got the payoff in the end with the rematch with Apollo. And that's where Rocky and Apollo's friendship is forged, and then that rolls into Rocky 3. I mean, come on, Clubber Lang and Thunder Lips and the whole crew. And then Rocky 4, Ivan Drago, USA versus the Soviet Union. Come on. Like, peak Cold War, right before the Cold War ends. Rocky 5, Tommy Gunn, brutal, miserable. And that's why Rocky came back, what was it, like 12 or however many years later, and made Rocky Balboa, solid quality sequel there. And then if you include the Creed follow-ups, I'd say at least the first 2 Creed movies. So, like, you're talking about around 6 good sequels to Rocky. So,
Wow. 6. All right.
Sure thing, Steven. No problem. Try to get him as much as possible. But, yeah, Rocky 5 was horrible. Rocky 5, like, it might as well not exist. What? Joe says the only good Rocky film was Rocky 5. Stop with the propaganda. Like,
somebody's coming at you hard now. I like it.
I'm looking at this photo. Is that Sloppy Joe? Like, did you change? Because I saw the photo on the Champions Lounge, and I think the champion, like, it looks like the guy in this photo.
Oh boy.
Right here. So, yeah, that's me, he says. It all makes sense. Listen to Guar, Tommy Gunn fan. Rocky 5.
You want to answer Holtz my beer?
Where is he? Yep. Vince, best mafia movie.
Goodfellas for me. Goodfellas is
Goodfellas.
so good. Yeah.
I think I've only seen Goodfellas once.
Goodfellas.
I've never been
good.
huge in, like, you probably never saw Sopranos, did you?
No, because it was an HBO, and and it was no.
See, but I've never seen that either, because I've just never been, like, deep into the mafia kind of.
Yeah, Donnie Brasco's time, he says, is a good one. I
I've
remember
seen
seeing that
that.
one in
I've seen
the
that.
theaters. I have never had an opportunity to sit down and just watch the Godfather, movies. Like, just sit down and watch them. I know lots of parts of them and that kind of stuff, but I need to sit one of these days. I need to just sit down and just watch them for all of their glory.
I'd like to do a Sopranos watch sometime because I've got the Max app and all that stuff.
There you go.
And I never watched it the first time. And, obviously it's one of those, like, a lot of people consider it one of the best TV shows ever.
Yeah,
but
it's true.
Find your lost, Vince, because why?
That's right.
They got their honor back, Penny.
I need to do that.
They got their honor back. Garrett, buy or sell. Al Golden delivered a top 3 coordinator performance in the country this weekend. At one point in the game, Notre Dame was down to their top 3 corners and top 3 edge rushers. I'll buy all the way.
I'll buy that.
Because we went, we went through the litany of injuries and the fact that you, as you just said, you pieced the secondary together. You're without your top 3 edge rushers, and you come out with a day like that. Yeah, you gave up some yards, you gave up some points.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you got the win.
As Brian will, I believe, go into detail tonight, he thinks it was a little bit by design. So take that for what it's worth.
So similar, kind of like what I was saying, maybe similar to the Miami game plan. Like, you would concede maybe some rushing yards by trying to limit the big passing plays as much as possible.
Which is what they have done so well. Yep. I believe so.
That's kind of what I wanted, and again, like, they gave up over 100 rushing yards in the first half. They only ended up giving up, 131 in the game.
Yeah.
And, again, like, they gave up
the big minus on the punt snap deal.
Yeah, that helps.
That's pretty major. But still, your point is still taken. They also, the quarterback run and the big minus on the punt kind of cancel each other out, in my opinion, because they were almost the exact same amount. Because I think the punt was like 42, or the punt play was 42, and I think the run was like 46. So they kind of cancel each other out a little bit. That's the way I look at it, because Notre Dame ended up with the football at the end of both of them. So I still think the yardage is pretty much where it should be.
Joe says, isn't that hat tip to the secondary coach? Of course, Mike Mickens getting, having a true freshman ready to play.
It's also a hat tip to the defensive line coach as well. But it's
Fair
still
point.
Al Golden's operation. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. Garrett says the best mafia movie is The Departed. I will say that of the genre, that's my favorite, even though, like, Jack Nicholson in that was a little bit. Have you seen The Departed?
I don't think so.
Oh my gosh, you haven't seen The Departed?
When did that come out?
Would have been close to 20 years ago, like 05-ish, 06 maybe, something like that.
Okay.
It's got Leo DiCaprio, Alec Baldwin, Matt Damon,
2006.
Mark Wahlberg, Jack Nicholson. You've got to watch The Departed if you get a chance. Won an Academy Award. Scorsese won the Academy Award for it.
Yeah, lots of fame.
It's funny that I'm not the mafia guy, and you've seen all this other mafia stuff, and that's the mafia movie that I've watched, and you haven't. So
I was very busy in 2006 trying to make sure that my wife would still marry me.
You mean stay married to you?
Oh yeah, I guess that's true. Because 06 is when she was pregnant. That's why I didn't go to the movies.
Wasn't that the Glue Factory years?
It might have been. It's right up there. Yeah. So it's a dark time. It's a dark time for me.
You held it together.
Yeah. Oh, it's a ching.
Pun
Yeah,
intended.
Where is it?
Yeah, there you go.
Get the bell on that one.
All right, we're going to finish on this one tonight unless we get any more questions that come through. We haven't even talked about this, and I'm surprised no one's brought it up. Irish defensive back Jordan Clark drew a personal foul flag in the second half for headbutting a Louisville player, Chris Bell. Ryan Roberts, who, of course, is part of our postgame show, used to be here full-time at IB, but he's working for A to Z Sports now. He tweeted that the Irish needed to get Jordan Clark off the field for the rest of the game. So Clark's dad Ryan Clark, who of course is a former NFL defensive back himself, tweeted back at Ryan, quote, maybe when a player spits in your face, you'll react better. I'm glad that's all he did, end quote. So, Vince, this entire thing, the spitting, headbutting incident, where do you stand on all this?
I stand on, I don't care what he did to you. You can't do that. You cannot retaliate like that. You can't. I'm not condoning the spitting. Obviously, it's terrible. And I think Louisville was pretty dirty most of the day. But you cannot headbutt a guy like that in that moment because you were about to get off the field at that point and you gave them new life. Cannot do that. You cannot do that. That could have lost them the game.
Is this worse than what Adon Schuler did, flipping the ball? I think it is.
I definitely think
you're on the field and you headbutt a guy.
Yep.
Look,
second
guy always gets caught. Like that's something, Ryan Clark, Jordan Clark, anyone who's played football, anyone who's played sports, you retaliate, you're going to get caught. It's like, how many times do you see that happen?
Especially like that. Game? How about you retaliate between the whistles? And
that's, because like the first guy spit, so he didn't even punch or shove him. The first guy spits, which is
terrible.
Granted, it's repulsive. No one's condoning that.
No,
but one guy spits and the other guy throws a headbutt. I mean, it's like, is this Hulk Hogan and the Iron Sheik, or what's going on here?
Right. It's terrible. It's terrible.
I actually had it happen at a youth practice once when I was a kid. We were probably 11, 12 years old, something like this. And somehow, like me and this dude on my team, because we're at practice, we kind of started arguing about something. I have no idea what it was about, but we were standing there face to face, and all of a sudden he hucked to us and spits in my face. And, it's like, it didn't end well for that guy. I will say that. But
that's not in a game where
we were 12 years old at practice. Okay. Yes. So like, we've both played sports, obviously, Vince. We both coached Vince. We like, you just
100%.
Emotion runs high when these kind of things happen. But in terms of, what ranks,
man.
Yeah, in terms of the lowest of lows, spitting in someone's face is right down there. It's like right down there with like twisting an injured guy's leg at the bottom of a pile, or hitting someone's junk at the middle of a pile.
Dirty,
dirty. Yeah,
it's dirty pool.
Yeah, I completely empathize with Jordan Clark, but the game's on the line. You got to find a way to walk away, because the best answer to that is the end of the game when you point to the scoreboard. And obviously there was some of that going on the field as well, even though Marcus Freeman said he didn't see it. You can't retaliate like that.
You can't retaliate.
Completely empathize, but you can't retaliate like that.
Here's the problem with sitting him. You had no more corners. Like,
well,
you were out.
Because that's what Ryan was saying. Sit him. Jeff is saying he probably should have sat. Who are you going to play at corner?
Who are you putting in? It would have taken me a while to come down from floor number 9 to come down and take over.
And by the way, Jordan Clark was playing a hell of a game. Like every time you turned around, Jordan Clark was out there making plays. He was playing great, which is probably why Chris Bell, decided, they were probably jawing back and forth, and and Chris Bell decides he's going to loogie him, and that's probably why, because Clark was getting the best of him for most of the day, So
there's no better payback
you just can't do
than winning.
That's right.
All right. So
that's right.
And there was bad blood at the end of the game. I'm sure we all saw some of the videos that occurred after the game. It was almost a little bit of a little tussle after the game between Notre Dame and Louisville. And
I missed that. I was not watching at all. I guess I was probably
I saw it after the fact.
Okay.
Saw it after the fact on Twitter. Some people took videos, that kind of thing. And there was a Notre Dame player that probably made a gesture he probably shouldn't have made, and it ticked off a Louisville guy. And luckily there were some people in there with some cooler heads. So it was clearly a heated game. Let's just say that. But you need to keep your head. You need to keep your head, period.
Yeah. It's just Connor says he'd do the same.
Well, that's fine, Connor. I mean, then you get a penalty and almost lose the game.
Word. Yeah, I mean, that's
you can't
that's
do
the problem. You could do the same, but he drew a 15-yard penalty for it.
Yeah, you can't do that. You can't put your feelings ahead of your team. Football's the ultimate team sport. That's it. That's where we're at. So you can say you would have done the same thing, and you are more than welcome to do so, but you are screwing your team at the same time.
Right. I know it's tough sometimes, but you got to keep your emotions
Yeah.
in check the best you can.
That's called being
during
an
a game.
adult. So I'm just saying.
Yeah. Again, in no way do I condone Bell spitting in
Not
Jordan
at
Clark's
all.
face, but Clark was playing great. He did play great for Notre Dame. And, that's the kind of thing that, like for something like that. And if an official wanted, he could easily have probably run him from the game. If he wanted to.
I
And they
thought he
needed
might,
him. They
actually.
needed him in the game. They needed him to have his head in the game.
Correct.
Okay, I forgot we got a basketball. We've got more commitments for Micah Shrewsbury.
Oh,
He
that's
just
right.
keeps reeling them in. 6'11" center, Tommy Oneman, ranked as the nation's number 58 overall player, number 8 center in the 2025 class by On3. He's a 4-star from Cretin-Durham Hall in St. Paul, Minnesota. Same high school as former Irish football great Michael Floyd. Same school as former Notre Dame baseball closer J.P. Gagne from the 2002 College World Series team. Same high school as Major League Baseball Hall of Famer Joe Mauer. And the beat just goes on for Micah Shrewsbury.
Seriously.
He got Brady Kohler, he got Jalen Harrelson, and he got Ryder Frost, all within, I think, what was it, a 4-day span last week. And now he goes out and he adds another one, Tommy Oneman, all these top 100 guys. He is killing it right now in recruiting, Vince.
It's awesome. And I love the fact that these kids go to football games, and then Marcus Freeman comes over and daps them all up. And, they got a good thing going there, man. Like the recruiting at basketball and the recruiting in football, they got a good thing going right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And hopefully it just keeps on rolling. Now, these guys are obviously, they're not going to be here this year, but it's very promising for Micah Shrewsbury. The future is very promising right now. I started this up earlier. I don't know if Jeremy's still with us. He said, I understand I just had a quadruple bypass and a valve replacement 3.5 months ago. If that's the case, if you're not joking about that, and I don't think you would joke about that, I hope you did well. And maybe you just need to sedate yourself during games like Saturday and take it easy as much as possible. But we obviously hope you're doing better, Jeremy. So a lot of fun way things turned out. All right, I'm going to let Vince have about a 20 or so minute break, and then upon further review is going to be coming with Vince and Brian here.
Stay tuned
in just a little bit, so everyone can take their bathroom break and then come back and get ready for another big show tonight as Vince and Brian look back at Notre Dame and Louisville from Saturday. Vince, enjoyed it as always. It'll be a busy week. I'll have you with me basically tomorrow, like the next couple of days, and then Trevor's going to be with me on Thursday, and we are eyeing a special guest on Thursday as well. So we'll have more on that a little bit later in the week when we have a chance. All right, Vince, thanks again. I will talk to you later. Everybody else, thanks for being here. Great input tonight. Thanks for being here. A lot of good stuff in the chat from live audience and everybody else. Be sure you hit that like button before you leave. We do greatly appreciate it, and we will talk to you tomorrow on IB Nation Sports Talk.